Alrighty, this session is recording. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Again, to reiterate, my name is Amanda Williamson. I'm one of the advisors who is leading this session. We want to apologize for the technological difficulties. We unfortunately did not think to test the link in time. We were just going in confident, thinking it was going to all be good. And then unfortunately, it was not so much. So we really appreciate everybody's patience. And we are recording this session for the students who got confused by the link mishap, who are not able to be with us today. So I just real quickly to introduce myself, my name is Amanda Williamson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the advisor for UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and Scandinavia. Trisha, do you want to go?
Absolutely. My name is Trisha Sherrard, and I'm working with many of you because I'm advisor for Western Europe, which includes Portugal, Spain, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Italy, and Malta. And I study abroad in France myself.
All right. So yes, Trisha and I have been doing this for quite a while. We're very excited to send you abroad. I do have a presentation that we are going to give. So bear with me for just a moment. Let me go ahead and get this ready to actually do the slideshow. I'm not the master of sharing my screen, not the master of technology. Here we go. Okay. Can everybody see this? Trish, can I get a thumbs up? All right, awesome. So this is your pre-departure orientation for all of our students going on provider programs, international exchange programs over the summer, or going on our GRIP programs. I do have one student in here who's going on an internship program. So hi, nice to see you, Caitlin. So let's go ahead and get started first with a land acknowledgement. Northern Arizona University sits at the base of the San Francisco Peaks on homelands sacred to Native Americans throughout the region. We honor their past, present, and future generations who have lived here for millennia and will forever call this place home. This is just to show you all the fun places that our students are going over the summer. This is not a fully inclusive list, but this is as much data as we could kind of get working with us on our little Google Maps there. So as you can see, it is very Europe heavy. A lot of you I know are definitely going to Europe. You're either working with Trisha, as she said, or working with me. So we do send a lot of students to Europe. We have a lot of students going to a bunch of other places as well. So you are one of just shy of about 300 students who's going abroad this summer. So this is a very exciting time. We're very excited for everybody. So this is what we're going to go over today. We got some program rules. We got some information on finances and grades. And then we've got the health, safety, and risk information. We've got reflecting on your identity abroad and kind of some homework that we're going to have for you. And then we'll have preparing for your trip with your, in this case, your program and your instructors there. So, excuse me. Sorry, my throat's a little stuffy today.
I can jump in, Amanda.
Absolutely. This is you, Trish.
All right, everyone. Program rules. I know it sounds like not the most fun topic to discuss, but it, of course, really important one. So you are NAU students, of course, when you're studying abroad. And though you won't necessarily be with other NAU students or NAU staff, we still hold you to a high standard, and that includes abiding by the code of conduct. So you are responsible for maintaining the code of conduct while you're abroad, and that goes beyond it goes beyond that phrase, because not only are you NAU students while you're abroad, but you are pseudo ambassadors for NAU and truly for the US. I mean, that sounds kind of dramatized perhaps, but it's really true. You might be actually one of very few people from the United States who, a certain local person you interact with has ever met. You have an opportunity as such to share about your lived experience here in the US, maybe even dispel some stereotypes or at least explain them, because I will say there are many negative stereotypes that folks around the world hold towards Americans. So, uphold yourself to that high standard. Familiarize yourself with your program specific rules and code as well. you are going to want to be in compliance with their, whatever they lay out for you. Please, no recreational drug use. This can be a serious offense in other countries. Please, please, please do not get in trouble with local law enforcement. That is the nightmare that keeps Amanda and I and our whole staff awake at night.
One thing with there to throw in is, thankfully, I have never had a student get into legal trouble abroad. I've been doing this for 6 years and I've never had it, so knock on wood. But I've had students bring up, what if I do something stupid and I end up possibly being jailed? Trisha and myself can help with a lot of the problems that you may face abroad, but we are not lawyers, particularly not are we international lawyers. So if you are jailed, there unfortunately is going to be very little that we can do to support you. So it's definitely not something that you want to be jailed in a foreign country. So please make sure you are following not only codes of conduct and your program's rules, but also local laws.
Thanks, Amanda. Concerning alcohol use, you will all be of legal drinking age wherever you're traveling, unless there's some country in the world I'm unfamiliar with the same drinking age as the US or older. So that you may have interest in drinking alcohol at some point during your program. And that's a choice that you are welcome to make. If it is legal, again, and if it is appropriate, of course, that's where this slide comes in. So during program hours, right, during class hours or a field trip or otherwise, that's completely inappropriate. That definitely doesn't hold you to that high standard that we've been talking about. So if you do choose to drink alcohol during your time over there, which is always a choice, right? Should you choose not to, that's fine too. It's completely up to you. But please do your best to mirror what local people are doing and engage responsibly, right? Maybe you already have some experience with alcohol. You might have a sense of how it affects you. Something we like to talk about is that it might actually have a different impact on you abroad. So be very safe with your choices. I would say, talk to local people, mirror what local people are doing. Binge drinking is not part of other cultures, and it's more about kind of savoring a glass of wine with a meal, for example. Okay, no excessive drinking or drunkenness, right, during off-program hours. So that's not generally something that you see people in other countries, at least in my region, likely. Well, Amanda, you can speak to your region too, but again, binge drinking, not part of the culture in my region. So
we actually have a whole slide that we'll get to that talks about alcohol later on.
Yeah, so this is something that you want to avoid even off program hours. You want to be considerate and respectful of your peers, your hosts and country, all of the people working for your program and facilitating that. This is, of course, an academic program you're engaging with, so engage in serious academic work. Your grades do count, right? So consider that a reason to work hard and know that you are a student abroad, you are studying abroad, not going on a vacation. And engage professionally and enthusiastically in your program, whether that's field trips or social gatherings, classes. We want you to come as the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. So finances and payments, you will pay NAU for the $100 application fee, the ITS fee, and the financial aid fee. So I have had a couple of students ask me about what some of the fees mean. You are still responsible for some of these fees while you are abroad. So that's what you'll pay NAU. You'll pay your program provider, all other costs for your program, for your tuition, your accommodation, any types of excursions and activities that you're going to undertake. You do need to check if your international health insurance is provided by us or by your program provider. Some of the program providers that we work with, for example, USAC, I know do provide students with their international health insurance. If you're working with a provider that does not provide you with health insurance, then we need to make sure that we are getting you enrolled in our health insurance. So go ahead and check in with your provider and let your education abroad advisor know. If you do decide to withdraw at this stage, you will be responsible for a $500 cancellation fee paid to us. and potentially a cancellation fee from your program provider. I don't work with USAC a whole lot, so I'm not sure if they have a cancellation fee. It's my students just don't tend to go on a whole lot of USAC programs, but any type of cancellation fee that is put upon you by your provider, you will have to pay in addition to paying our cancellation fee that will go onto your LUI. And if you are interested in applying financial aid to this program, specifically your FAFSA aid, make sure you talk to your education abroad advisor. We can help get you started on that process. Excuse me. And I do want to clarify the difference between FAFSA and scholarships. FAFSA is loans and grants. That's money that comes from the federal government that you typically have to pay back. Well, if it's a grant, you don't have to pay it back, but if for a loan, you would have to pay it back. Whereas a scholarship is something you apply for, and you are kind of other people who are also applying for the scholarship. And then depending on how you do, you may or may not get funding. At this stage, our scholarship deadlines have passed. We do not have any scholarships that are still available through our office. So if you're looking for additional funding opportunities, your best bet is most likely going to be looking to apply FAFSA. So go ahead and talk to your education abroad advisor about that.
I actually believe you all at this point are enrolled in CIE 299. And if you're not, please reach out to your education abroad advisor. This is not actually a class, so you don't have to submit anything for CIE 299, but it's placeholder credits. So we use this as part of our administrative process. It's really important to label you as a study abroad student in the system, so to speak. And don't touch that, don't remove it or drop yourself or anything like that. But again, if you're not enrolled in CIE 299, let your education abroad advisor know. When you come back from your program, we'll receive a transcript from your program. Or if you're a GRIP student, you might be working with a faculty member on campus. So there's some nuance there. But all this is to say, when you come back, we're going to receive something from your program. We will use that to essentially convert your credits from abroad to appear as they were approved by your academic advisor here on campus. Or if you want them to be general elective, liberal studies, and so on, hopefully you're communicating about course equivalencies with your education abroad advisor, because we will use those course approvals to create what's called a grade memo, which reflects how your courses abroad appear on your NAU transcript. We'll have you confirm that, and then we'll post those credits as such. Your grades may or may not count towards your NAU GPA. And what is meant by that is that they come back as either transfer or direct credit. You may not have a choice depending on your program. So if you are going abroad through a university and taking your classes at a host university, you might choose to have you might choose to have transfer credit appear on your NAU transcript. And what that means is that the courses will appear in the transfer section of your transcript, and those credits will not count towards your NAU GPA. If you're getting direct credit from your program, your grades will appear almost as if you took them at NAU. So there is a note that says courses taken through USAC in Viterbo, Italy. And it will list the classes just as if in the same order as if you were here on campus. And those credits will count towards your NAU GPA. That can be kind of confusing concept for students. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your education abroad advisor. You can also write questions in the chat, or at the end of the presentation, we'll have some time for questions as well.
Yeah, I will say I can see that somebody has their hand raised and that somebody has already put some stuff in the chat. I'm sharing my screen and I can't see that stuff while I am sharing my screen. I can only see that it's happening. I can't actually see what the chat is. So go ahead and put any questions that you have into the chat right now and we will address them at the end, okay? We'll just, put them into the chat to make sure that you don't forget about them, but we will address all questions at the end.
Amanda, I can just address it now just because it is sort of pretty specific to this student. So Cora, it sounds like you may be a research internship student, which means that you might not be getting credit necessarily. It says your credits will transfer over. You may want to just talk to Holly about that just to be sure of the situation.
Cora actually said she was going to Belize, didn't she?
Oh, okay.
That would be Arturo. So just speak to your education abroad advisor, Cora.
Yeah. Thanks, Cora.
So the Peace Corps Prep is a fun little thing that we have available to students that Study Abroad does help fulfill part of. So this is a certified, an official certification program through the Peace Corps, where students of any major can participate in some stuff here at NAU as part of your undergraduate degree. Study Abroad is one of those things that you can do. And you can complete some of these various requirements. And then at the end of it, you will have a certificate from the Peace Corps saying that you've completed the Peace Corps Prep certificate, and it makes you more likely to be accepted into the Peace Corps if you decide that you do want to pursue the Peace Corps, which is a really, really amazing opportunity. If it's not something you've thought about, I definitely encourage it. So some of the skills that you can gain from Peace Corps Prep certification are foreign language proficiency, professional leadership skills, intercultural competence, and some specific skills in your area of study. So Peace Corps is available to anybody, any major. If you're interested in our Peace Corps Prep certificate, you can either contact your Education Abroad advisor, or you can contact Daniela Pesce at that email address up at the top, daniela.pesce@nau.edu. She is our coordinator for the PCP, and she'll be able to assist you if you are interested. This is a relatively new program. We had our first ever student get certified in the fall, and we had 2 students get certified this semester. So it's very, very new, but it is growing quickly. We are very excited. So if you're interested in that, please do get in touch with us, because it's a really, really amazing opportunity. Oh, that was too soon, sorry. But one thing I always say eventually, later on in my professional life, is I'm going to put my career on hold and go do the Peace Corps for a couple of years. I think it sounds amazing.
We talked a little bit about mitigating risk regarding alcohol and drug use, but I also want to bring this up in the context of the pandemic, right? We are still experiencing and living through a global pandemic, and this is not something that any of us take lightly. So please limit your exposure as much as you can in preparation and the days leading up to your travel. So avoiding unnecessary travels or gatherings. You want to, practice good health in addition to limiting your exposure. So you're an ambassador for public health in this way. I think we're all more familiar with the concept and more aware of the concept that if we go somewhere and we're feeling sick, we could get a lot of other people sick. So please take this into consideration as you're preparing for your travels, and be forthcoming, right? If you do start to feel ill during your program, please talk to someone, because it's not worth keeping to yourself and getting others sick. There will be a plan in place for your program for you to isolate and recover.
We get the question a lot lately about vaccination. The official stance of NAU matches with the official stance of the CDC, which is that we recommend everybody get a COVID vaccine, the full complete series of vaccinations. So 1 shot if it's Johnson & Johnson, 2 shots if it's Moderna or Pfizer. And we encourage you to get a booster as soon as you can. The vaccinations have been proven to help stop the spread of COVID-19. So while we do not require that you are vaccinated, we highly, highly encourage it, and be aware that some of your providers may require it. Not to call out my internship student, but the provider that you're working with, I know for a fact, does require that everybody is COVID-19. Now, that's not us that's requiring it. That is your provider. They may or may not require COVID vaccinations. Additionally, some airlines may require vaccinations. Some particular countries require evidence of vaccination in order to enter public spaces. So depending on where it is that you are planning to go, make sure that you are checking updates regularly. Your Education Abroad advisor will communicate some of this stuff to you, but the responsibility is also on you to make sure that the country that you are planning to attend is open to somebody in your current vaccination status, regardless of whatever your current vaccination status is. So make sure you are checking with your provider, your airline, any hotel that you're staying at to see if they require COVID vaccination evidence. Make sure if you do need to get vaccinated before you go, make sure you give yourself time to get all of your shots before you leave. Keep your vaccination card safe. They're starting to create these fun little, almost like name badge protector things that you may see, little protectors for your vaccination card. So we would encourage you to make sure you are keeping your vaccine card safe. And also we encourage you to bring a few of the rapid COVID tests along with you. Everybody over the age of 18 in the United States should now be eligible for a couple of the rapid at-home tests. And we highly encourage you to bring a couple of those with you. Your health insurance is going to cover any COVID testing that you may need while you are abroad. However, testing internationally can be a lot more time consuming than it is over here. So it is very, very much to your benefit to have a couple of those rapid COVID tests with you in case you do start feeling sick. You can get yourself tested, at least do the at-home test right away, and then decide the best course of action from there.
And I'm going to chime in with one example, actually.
Yeah.
This because it is really important that you're looking into entry requirements right now. The definition that a country might have for being fully vaccinated is something you'll want to keep in mind. So for example, I know that Spain is requiring folks to be vaccinated, fully vaccinated within 260 days. So if you did get vaccinated initially, but it's been more than 260 days, you would need to then have a booster, and recall that you'll need the 2 weeks after the booster considers you fully vaccinated. So that timeline is going to be pretty short if you haven't yet looked into this. Something you definitely want to be researching right away to ensure that you can get on that plane without any issue.
Oh, shoot, sorry.
No, that's all I had to say. I just wanted to share that example because I think it paints a picture of the sense of urgency around making sure you're up to date.
Absolutely not. I think that is a very good example. And one other thing to be aware of is, again, we will try to keep you, your EA advisor will try to keep you as aware of this as possible, but these policies are changing quickly and with absolutely no notice. So, for example, one of my colleagues asked me for a list of countries that are currently requiring vaccinations for tourists to enter. And it took me maybe 2-3 days to try to gather up that information. And by the time I had the complete list, the information had changed. So over a 3-day period. So this stuff is changing very, very quickly. So it is your responsibility to be aware of the requirements of the country that you're going to and what you need to do in order to make sure that you are meeting those requirements.
We got a question in the chat about the Italy Super Green Pass. And Riley's asking if it would be equivalent to your COVID vaccine card. The answer is yes and no. You definitely still want to bring your vaccine card with you. Don't laminate it too. I've had nurses say not to do that because when you do, if you got a booster and they wanted to add that to the card, they wouldn't be able to do so, but keep it safe somewhere, of course. So the Italy, I don't know that it's called a Super Green Pass. I know the Green Pass, maybe it's Super Green now, but your country likely has an equivalent to this, which is a digital version of a vaccine card, essentially. And in order to enter the country, you might need to fill out health forms that will work up to you having a digital version of your vaccine card. It might be a QR code, for example. It'll be different from country to country, but it would serve as a representation of your vaccination status in the host country and allow you to move more freely around different establishments locally and travel around different countries potentially. Great question, Riley.
But again, it is country to country and it is definitely going to vary. So just make sure that you are doing the research.
Okay, the STEP program, Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, is a program through the Department of State. So you would log in and log your travels through this process, which is pretty simple. It should only take really a couple of minutes. And what's great about this is that if you are in a place where there is a crisis, a natural disaster, you're on a list that the embassy locally can access. So they'll see, okay, we have some US travelers here in our city. We will reach out to them and contact them to assist. So this is something that hopefully you never actually have to use, but it's so valuable in case of an emergency situation to be on this STEP list.
And I think they've got an app you can download. I don't think you have to actually go to the website. I think they do have an app these days.
Probably.
Yeah, they've got an app for everything these days. Another app that we want you to get is the NAU Safe app. This is the official safety app of NAU. It allows you to get any notifications and alerts that you may need while you are abroad. It does have a whole separate section in there that Trisha and I helped write, with some resources for you abroad. And one of the big things that's going to be in the NAU Safe app that's going to be very important is it does have access to our 24/7, 365 emergency line. So you can see kind of right here, this little bottom orange icon that says 24/7, 365 emergency. You can click on that and it'll connect you. It'll give you a phone number to connect you with our 24/7 emergency line. That is a emergency answering service down in Phoenix. So what happens is you call them, you leave a message. They will immediately call the director of education abroad. And then the director of EA will contact Trisha or myself or Holly or whoever, maybe, whoever's your advisor and can best assist you. Now we want to emphasize this number is only for emergencies. And typically by emergency, we mean physical safety. I have had students call this number before as an example, because they were having some issues with getting their classes to be approved while they were still here in the United States. That's not really something that's an emergency. If you need to call the 24/7, 365 emergency line, again, hopefully, as Trisha said in the previous slide, hopefully you do not ever need to do this. But if you do, if you are sick, if you are injured, if you are with a friend who is on the program with you, who is also sick or injured, who's also an NAU student, please let us know, because we want to be able to provide you with any types of resources that we possibly can while you are in emergency situations.
Some of you will be enrolled in CISI International Health Insurance. And some of you might be enrolled in a different insurance plan. Understand that your plan may be quite similar. This information is all somewhat general and will probably still apply to you no matter your insurance plan. But international health insurance is required by NAU for all study abroad participants. So if your program doesn't already cover you, we will enroll you in CISI. You will get an email that will share the details of your policy, and that would include your travel dates. So we enroll you, if you are one of those students that we enroll, for the dates of your program. Should you wish to travel, get there early, or travel beyond your program dates, we highly encourage that you continue your coverage through the entirety of your personal travels as well. Just in case anything was to happen, it would be so valuable to have that coverage. So we'll send out a form where you'll be able to add that coverage for your personal travels. It's about $1.50 per day. So it's quite affordable as well. And so whatever your insurance plan is, if it's CISI or otherwise, please make yourself familiar with the policy and how to use it. So there is likely an app where you could understand how to access care, etc. One thing to know about CISI, and this could be true of your international insurance policy as well, is that you would be reimbursed. So there might be an upfront expense for you should you need some type of care. And then CISI would reimburse you. That happens pretty quickly, but it's something to be prepared for. So in the event of an emergency, having access to some funds that could cover your care, or a credit card, for example, that would be beneficial to talk to your loved ones about. We'll get to money later on as well, but it would be something important to talk about just in concerning your health. What's not covered by these plans are risk-seeking activities such as mountaineering, paragliding, skydiving, etc. Motor vehicle accidents. So if you're planning on renting a car, do not do that. To take public transportation. It's one of the best things about traveling in other places. Preventative care is also not covered. So if you want to go and get a tooth cleaning abroad, that would not be covered, but it might be really cheap out of pocket. So you maybe would still want to do that. It's up to you. That would be a personal decision, potentially risk.
One thing I did want to kind of clarify on something you said, Trisha. If you get into a motor vehicle accident, that will 100% be covered. Even if you are the one who is driving, that will be covered. The wording here is kind of strange. What they're saying is racing by horse, motor vehicle, or motorcycle. So if you're just if you're riding a bus and the bus crashes and you get injured, that will be covered. If you decide to rent a car so you and your buddy can motocross race down the streets of London, for example, that's not going to be covered. Don't be racing no horses. Don't be racing no cars. But if you happen to be in a car accident and you get injured, that will be covered. More safety. I know it's a lot of safety stuff, y'all, but we do, health and safety, as it says here, are the absolute first priority. We try to encourage you to have plans and have contingency plans and have, steps in your head for what you can do in case bad things happen, but no single plan can address all contingencies. We may get struck by a meteor tomorrow. We're not going to see that coming. So, as much as possible, the best way to be prepared in an emergency is to be informed. Be informed of your local culture, be informed of the politics, the customs, any local stuff regarding money or dating or gender or anything like that. Just be as aware as you can about the climate that you are going to go and travel to. And by that, I mean the social and political climates. Be aware that alcohol is usually involved with accidents. I think one of the next 2 or 3 slides here is going to be a slide fully on alcohol. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit more depth. And to the best of your ability, you are responsible for ensuring a safe learning environment for yourself, your professors, and your classmates. It is your responsibility to do everything that you possibly can to keep yourself safe, and by extension, to help make sure that the people around you are safe. You all are here today because you have the same goal, which is to go abroad and have an amazing international adventure. And of course, we just want to make sure that you are safe while you are doing that. So be aware, be informed, do some research, and just always, I always feel like I'm like my mom when I say this, but always just make good choices.
Staying healthy abroad. It can be kind of challenging, right? You're going to this new place, you'll be out of your typical routine, eating different foods, maybe not exercising in the same way that you typically do, or maybe you're going to be exercising a lot more, walking around the city and whatnot. So be aware of what you need to be and feel physically healthy. Hopefully you have a sense of this after, living for 18 plus years on this planet. You hopefully know what makes you feel good in terms of your diet, your exercise, your sleep, and perhaps you're taking certain medication. So continue to the best of your ability to keep doing that while you're abroad. If you do take medication, please talk to your doctor about ensuring that you'll have enough of that medication while you're in country. And know that when you are out of that routine, it can be hard to remember to take it. So give yourself a reminder in your phone or whatever system you use. Make sure you employ that. So be prepared with those prescriptions. Research any traveler's illness that you might need to be aware of as you're entering your host country. This is going to look different from place to place, of course. So if there are certain illnesses associated with the climate, maybe you're headed to the rainforest and it's a hot, humid climate, or you need to be aware of avoiding certain foods, traveling to Latin America, for example, and not eating freshly washed vegetables. So details like this, something you'll definitely want to research before you get to your host country to avoid losing those precious days you have, feeling sick. That's not something we want.
The thing that comes to my mind when we talk about food in new cultures is there's this saying for people who travel to India called Delhi belly, which is it's a likelihood of a lot of travelers to get sick from the food in the first couple of days that you're there, just because you are simply not used to the way that they're preparing their food. Not to say that there's necessarily anything bad with the food, but it's just not something our body is used to handling. So people going to India, my mom has a big dream to go to India, and she and I would talk about the Delhi belly. So just be aware you are going to need some time to adjust to foods in your new climate. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, Tricia.
No, thanks, Amanda. I appreciate that. I mean, the same is true for people who come visit the US, right? They perhaps have an adverse reaction to some of our foods. So just do
Absolutely.
some research. There are great resources out there, and make sure that you're trying to eat a nutritious diet, staying hydrated while you're traveling.
Mhm. So mental health, this is definitely something that comes up, or that can come up in the time that you're traveling, because study abroad is a whole new way that you're living your life. You're in a completely new country, completely new culture, completely new living area, completely new people that you may be living with. You're adapting to new foods, you're adapting to jet lag, and to maybe be having some difficulty in sleeping. It's not just a physical adaptation, but it's also a mental adaptation as well. Um, and all these various changes and stresses that come up can trigger some mental health concerns. So, just some things that we want to be looking out for, and for you to also look out for in your friends: irritability, lack of enjoyment of things, depression, excessive eating or sleeping, or on the inverse of that, not enough eating and sleeping. I am one of those people where when I get very stressed out, I tend to not eat. I'll kind of go one way or the other. I'll either eat my feelings or I won't eat at all. So either one of those can be a symptom of some mental health struggles. Abuse of alcohol and drugs, as we talked about earlier, withdrawal, feelings of hopelessness, feelings of depression, anything like that are really relatively normal adjustments to study abroad. If you were to experience one or two of these signs, I would probably say, yeah, that's sort of just a sign of culture shock and of that adjustment. However, if you begin to feel like you are really, really struggling, or you see multiple of these signs in your friends and you start to worry that they may be struggling, reach out to support from your education abroad advisor and to your program. We do have mental health services available to study abroad students in the time that you are abroad. And your provider will also, in all likelihood, have some really, really good resources for you as well. Typically, the time frame that we see students having some of these mental health adjustments are in the first week to 10 days or so, I would say. So, if you start to feel at any time during your program any of these types of feelings, and you're starting to just think, I'm not really enjoying this the way that I really hoped that I would, reach out and get support. One thing I tell my students is we cannot help you if we don't know there's a problem. We can't help you solve that problem if we don't know that there is a problem. So reach out to us, let us know how we can support you. We want the exact same thing that you want, which, again, as I said earlier, is for you to go and have an amazing international experience. And we want to do whatever we can to support you in making that happen. And not every day that you're there may be sunshine and flowers and eating all of the Italian cheese. Sometimes a day may be a day of depression, or a day of withdrawal, or a day of isolation. Let us help you with that as much as we can, because we do have some resources. And again, we just want the best for you. I know we're very much broken records in it, but we really, really do. We just want the best for you guys. We want you to go and have amazing, life-changing experiences like Trisha and I had. Oh, that's the same slide twice. Okay.
Thanks, Amanda. Okay, so we have touched on alcohol use quite a bit. And there's a reason we bring this up so much, right? Because we see this leading to students getting injured, sick, or into troubling situations abroad. So it's something we want to avoid. So please recognize that alcohol use, like Amanda mentioned earlier, is associated with misconduct, with risk, with mistakes that could lead to injuries. And know that you, in choosing to drink, that you are making a choice that could lead to some type of an injury, a mistake, etc. So be mindful, be careful. Again, make good choices, and be open. So talk to your friend. If you are concerned for one of them or for yourself, it's important that you do talk to the people around you. You'll have a support system within your group. And of course, your program leaders are your ideal source of support. They're going to be there on the ground to assist and to be there for you and help you make good decisions. So engage in low risk alcohol use if you choose to drink. Again, it's always going to be a choice. Travel in groups, so don't ever leave someone behind. You want to go into, if you're going out for an evening, for an example, go into that evening with a plan for who's going, how you're getting there, how you're getting home, and making sure if there's any change in that plan, everyone's informed and everyone's together.
Mhm.
Everyone knows what's going on and that no one is left behind. Be aware of your surroundings. There's a phrase called relaxed alertness that I think applies really well to travel in general, and not just related to alcohol use, but you want to be familiar with your surroundings, though not to the degree where you're paranoid and you can't, you can't enjoy the experience. So take it in. If you're feeling like something's off, you're not certain about where you are in the situation you're in, do what you can to remove yourself and your friends from that situation as soon as possible.
Mhm.
And maybe that would include, contacting local law enforcement, for example, or an establishment owner if you're in a business and you think something, something is going on that's making you uncomfortable.
Mm.
Protect your belongings as well. So you'll want to carry a bag that zips or has a buckle that you're keeping on the front of your body. Just being aware, don't leave your bag hanging on a chair or in a seat or otherwise. That's something you'll just want to practice as soon as you get there.
Mhm.
Where are my items? Limit your consumption. Again, you might have a sense of how alcohol impacts you here in the States, but there's something called tolerance fail, which can exist when you go to an unfamiliar place and you consume alcohol. You might actually have a very different physical, emotional reaction than you're used to. And this can lead to potentially, dangerous situations. So understand that tolerance fail is a risk.
Mhm.
And alcohol poisoning is always an emergency. So if you or a friend or someone around you, it has consumed so much alcohol and it seems that they might be experiencing alcohol poisoning, you want to get them care immediately.
Mhm. Yeah, that is an instance where we are definitely going to say call the emergency line. I know I said earlier it is for emergencies. Alcohol poisoning is very much an emergency. So two other things that I would say about alcohol, just from my own experience, is just to reiterate what Trisha said about travel in groups, never leave someone behind. There's this sort of stereotype, at least among, I think mine and Trisha's generation, that girls always go to the bathroom together. Um, when we mean nobody goes anywhere alone, I mean I want you guys going to the bathroom at the club with your friends. Nobody orders drinks by themselves. You never leave a drink unattended. You never drink anything that you have not seen poured for you. Do not take a drink that anybody hands to you unless it's somebody that you very, very, very much trust. So be aware of what it is that you're drinking in particular as well, and be very, very aware about the fact that nobody ever goes anywhere alone. And the other thing that I would say that comes up a lot in the region that I work with students going to Ireland and Australia and England, which do have reputations for being countries of higher alcohol use. So some of my students will sometimes get into friendly drinking competitions at the bar, and they'll be like, oh, I can drink this Irishman under the table. You can't. I can guarantee that you can't. You're not going to do it. And that's kind of a thing that Americans sort of, we get goaded into kind of easily, is these little friendly drinking contests. That's where the tolerance fail is going to happen, and that's where alcohol poisoning is going to happen. So know your own limits. I will say, other than some of those friendly competitions that you may see in some pubs, peer pressure to use alcohol abroad is remarkably low. I was not a huge drinker when I went abroad. I can count exactly one instance in which I felt pressure to drink in the entire 6 months that I was there. So it definitely is not as much of a thing, but if it does happen to you, do not engage with it. Know your own limits and know what it is that you need to do to keep yourself safe. Sexual violence and harassment, also not a fun topic. So I want to start off by saying, if you're ever in a situation where you are harassed or sexually assaulted, it is never your fault. I don't care if you've been drinking. I don't care what you're wearing. I don't care what situation you're in. If you are harassed or assaulted, it is never your fault. Period. End of story. That said, we want to do everything that we can to reduce the risk of that happening, because there are some behaviors that you can engage in that can reduce the risk of you being in a situation where you are more likely to be prone to sexual violence or sexual harassment. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things you can do to keep yourself safe is to be aware of the culture, be aware of relationship norms, be aware of gender norms, be aware of LGBTQIA views if you identify as a part of the LGBTQIA community. Be aware of your host country's definition of sexual harassment versus a compliment. An example that I have here is in the United Kingdom, catcalling can sometimes be a little bit more aggressive than it is here in the United States, and it's not considered harassment, it is considered a compliment. So it's just a part of the culture. Is it's expected in a lot of instances that men will shout at women walking down the street, and it's not considered harassment the way that it is here in the States. Some countries in Latin America and Africa will have a casual sexism and an idea that on a day-to-day basis, they'll make these sexist jokes, and they'll have this air of machismo, and there may be a very casual put down of one gender or another. Typically it is female. So that may exist depending on where you're going. And there may be differing beliefs about contraception and about dating and about when to have sex in the context of a relationship. So do some research on this stuff if you are planning on engaging in any kind of romantic activity in the time that you're abroad. Some things that can increase the risk of sexual assault are alcohol use, drinking too much, or drinking something that has been left unattended that has been unfortunately spiked. So risky alcohol use can do that. Being left alone does increase your risk. That's again why we say travel in groups, and the lack of familiarity with those cultural norms. So we are hoping that you will be able to keep yourself safe and that you will have a happy, positive experience with no violence, no harassment. However, should something, God forbid, happen, we do encourage you to report it to us. Call the emergency line. This is also a thing where 24/7, 365, you call us. We encourage you to contact the U.S. Embassy that's closest to you so they can provide support to you. And we do have resources here at Campus Health Services for upon your return. One thing that I do like to make very clear when I'm talking to my students about sexual violence and sexual harassment is that Tricia, myself, and every other advisor in this office is a mandatory reporter. We do encourage you to let us know if something happens, because again, we want to help you, but we unfortunately are not in a position where we can keep it confidential. If you report to us an incident of sexual violence that may occur while you're abroad, I do not have the ability to keep it to myself. I have to report it to the Title IX office here on campus. So I tell you that because I want you to know, A, that we cannot necessarily guarantee your anonymity if you do report to us, but B, it's because we want to get you resources that can help you. So again, knocking on all of the various wood, please, try to make good choices. But again, if you are in a situation where you are harassed or assaulted, where you feel unsafe, it is never, ever your fault. And we just want to be very, very clear about that.
We have a question in the chat about calling the emergency number. You'll want, before you call this Center for International Education emergency number, you absolutely want to call your local emergency number. So there's an equivalent to 911 in every country. You want to familiarize yourself with that and put it right into your phone when you get over there.
Yeah.
So though, yes, calling our line can be helpful, it's going to be a much quicker response to work with local law enforcement.
Yeah, typically we're going to say call them first and then call us. Call them first to make sure that you're in a situation where you're safe and that you're getting the immediate resources that you need, and then call us and we can work on some longer term resources.
It's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much is.
Okay, so if you plan to travel on your own before, after your program dates, during your program, we ask that you fill out and sign this online form, and we'll send this out as well, so that you can, so that we know where you're going, right? We'll know, of course, where your program is and what your program dates are. But if something was to happen abroad and you are in a completely different place, it really helps us to know where you are so we can be as supportive as possible. So
Absolutely.
you must fill out this form in advance of your travel so we can keep tabs on you.
Mhm. And excuse me, and we to a certain extent we encourage you to travel. Of course, we want to make sure that you are limiting some of your international exposure. So we would encourage maybe travel to other cities in the country that you're in, or to other places in the city that you're in. We would encourage you at this stage to maybe limit some of your, if you're studying in France, we would encourage you maybe not to go to Germany or anything like that in your free time. If you decide to, then just make sure you fill out this form. Again, sorry, Tricia, I feel like I'm interrupting you. So
We have another question about that, actually, if you're staying, but your parents are meeting you there. I mean, we'd still want to know that, just again, in case something happened, if say there was an earthquake in, I don't know, in your host country. Obviously, I hope that doesn't happen, but it really helps us to know in
mhm,
the event of an emergency where you are, whether you're with your family or not.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking that.
Yeah, either way, regardless of where you're going, who you're doing it with, definitely fill out this form. So we talked a little bit earlier about some assumptions about cultures, and how you may have assumptions about them, they may have assumptions about you. These are some assumptions that people often have about just a couple of example countries that we work with. For example, Spain, Spaniards party all night and sleep all day. Bullfighting is the national pastime, and the language is easy to understand if you speak Spanish. Tricia, I'm sure that last point in particular amuses you. Another example is the Japanese. I myself have been to Japan. I took a 2-week holiday there a couple years ago. Japanese eat sushi every day, love anime and manga. The women are all subservient and docile, and Japan is a high-tech wonderland. I will agree with the statement that it is a high-tech wonderland. I will say that is true. I saw some of the most amazing technology. None of the rest of this stuff is accurate. These are just some examples of some very commonly held tropes about foreign countries. Again, Egyptians all ride camels and dress traditionally, and Egypt is all about pharaohs and the Red Sea. This may be stuff that you may have gleaned from social media, pop culture, Instagram, all the various ways that we are consuming media and consuming culture these days. You probably have some of these ideas about the country that you're going to. And to go along with that, they probably have some assumptions about you.
And they definitely do, because we are so central. Our media is so prominent around the world. People all over the world are consuming American television, movies. So assumptions about Americans are very prevalent.
Yeah.
And some of those assumptions include that we are loud, we are ignorant, rude, friendly, and just unaware. We are wealthy and materialistic. Everyone owns a car, a house, and a gun. And the gun conversation is one that I studying abroad in France came up quite a bit. Really, everyone does assume that about you as an American. Of course, whether it's true or not.
Yeah, the question that I commonly get when I travel, especially when I tell people that I come from the US West, because again, in pop culture, the US West is portrayed as cowboys and Indians and all those kind of tropes that we know are very outdated and very harmful, especially to our Native American population. But the question that I get very commonly, and again, Tricia, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but the question that I get when I travel is not, do you own a gun? It's how many guns do you own? They just assume that I'm part of a certain culture. Again, whether you are a gun person or not a gun person is none of our business, just that you're aware. This is an assumption that they have.
Well, that assumption, I think, is even more so today, based around the fact that news of mass shootings is something folks are aware of around the world, and so
Absolutely.
they see that as part of our everyday life. They'll also make assumptions that we are ethnocentric, that we don't really know anything about other cultures. I think to a degree, this is largely true, right? Folks in other countries, they have to learn other languages just to get by in their daily lives. They also will know so much about our political system here in the US as well as political happenings in other countries in the world.
Mhm.
Generally, that's not as true for Americans, right? So assumptions come from somewhere. These stereotypes come from somewhere. It's just important to recognize that and recognize that these things are not necessarily all true, and also to recognize that they're rooted in something,
Mhm.
and kind of focusing on maybe what that is. That can lead to some really cool conversations. So along with that, ethnocentrism is a sense of arrogance, being environmentally disrespectful, quite wasteful, and warmongering. And the fourth one listed here is that we are indulgent. So that we are sexually promiscuous, obese, we love drinking, drug use, and partying. And that kind of goes along with the idea of the wealth to the materialism. So think again about how you represent the United States, Arizona, and NAU, because again, it's true. It might sound dramatic, but you are a representative of NAU, of the US, of Arizona when you study abroad. And you have a chance to dispel some of these, or at least provide some helpful insight to some of these stereotypes about Americans abroad. And you can also, respectfully ask local people about some stereotypes that you've seen about their culture abroad. Of course, you want to kind of think about how to phrase that in a way that's not going to be offensive, but I think locals would be typically pretty happy to have a conversation about that.
Mhm. Absolutely. So we're giving you a little bit of homework. This is our diversity wheel. We love our diversity wheel. And we want you to think about your identity. Think about who you are, because we are never just one thing. None of us is ever just one thing. And this wheel is a very, very, I would say, very simplified breakdown of some of the identities that that we can have, because I would say even a lot of this is, you could go even deeper and deeper and deeper into a lot of this stuff. So think about who you are as a person, both inside of these identities and outside of that. What aspect of your identity do you think people first notice about you? Is it your age? Is it your race? Is it your gender? Is it any visible disabilities? What is it that you think people notice? Which identities do you think about most often when you think about who you are? And are some of these identities maybe something you've never really thought of before? Have you maybe not even ever really thought about the ways that some of these categories may actually define or provide some guidelines to an identity that you may have? So what do you think about most often? What do you think about least often as well? Which identity do you think will have the biggest impact on your experience abroad? If it's something personal that you decide to share, like, for example, a political ideology, or if it's something that's visible, like a race or ethnicity, which one do you think is going to have the biggest impact? And then do you expect any of your identities will change or shift over the course of your experience abroad? And this one's interesting because it's fun looking at the before and after. Write down now if you think there may be any shifts in any of these categories and identities, and then write that down somewhere, and then come back later after you return and look at it, and then kind of, think about it again, because you may have thought, oh, well, I really imagine that this part of my identity will be very much impacted when I go abroad. And then you may find out it's like, oh no, it was this one instead. That's crazy. So think about just who you are and how this experience is going to fit into who you are, fit into who you currently are, and also how it's going to define and maybe change some of these ideas about who we think that we are. One of the most common quote unquote tropes that you're going to hear when it comes to study abroad is it'll completely change your life. I mean, I can't speak for everybody else, but speaking for myself, that is accurate. I was a very, very different person in a 6-month period. And people even commented on it. One of the first things that I did when I came back was I went to my brother's birthday party, and people even commented, they're like, you seem different. And I'm like, yeah, I lived in a foreign culture for 6 months. It was crazy. So just spend some time thinking about this stuff.
Bring some more intentionality to your travels. So thinking up through your goals, this is your other piece of homework. I think Amanda and I both, we meet with a lot of students who want to study abroad because they want to travel through Europe, which is valid, right? It's an amazing experience to be able to do that. At the same time, I always want to dig deeper, right? What do you hope to get out of the experience besides being a tourist? In fact, maybe being a tourist isn't really the goal, right? And hopefully it's not, because we hope that you want to live in this country with a more informed eye, an understanding of local perspectives, a desire to support local people, businesses, and be more involved in the community in some way, even if it seems pretty minor, right? So thinking through some goals, how can you integrate yourself more fully into your host community? What is your timeline to review and revise those goals? So make sure you look at them again while you're over there, so you can actually come up with some tactics to see them through. And then how will you evaluate if you've met that goal? There's a term called SMART goals. It's a framework for setting goals, which is an acronym. So it stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. It's a great framework for coming up with goals because it holds you accountable to create a goal that's actually achievable within that period of time. Sometimes we can come up with pretty vague goals that we don't follow up on because we haven't built in that structure for ourselves. So we definitely encourage you to be more intentional about your travels.
I'm muted. Sorry. I was just talking to myself. So this is a quote from one of my students. It was by far the most stretching, scary, wonderful, and empowering experience of my life. And this student is the one on the far side in the sunglasses. So it's going to be a scary experience. We're definitely not going to say that, but it's most likely going to be one of the best things that you will ever choose to do with your life. And we're almost done, guys, I promise.
I'm going to kind of skim through this pretty quickly because you can, of course, reference this as you're actually packing. But a big takeaway is to bring less. Bring less than you actually think you'll want to bring, because I think that's the most common piece of feedback we hear from students, is that they ended up packing way too much. And I know I personally had that experience as well. So pack consciously, research the climate, research local perceptions of modesty and local fashion. That can be kind of shocking for students. I can speak to Europe, for example. It's not really common to see people, even in the summer, wearing really short shorts, right? So that's something that is quite a common part of fashion here, at least for female identifying people. So familiarize yourself with how people dress over there. And that's not to say you can't wear certain clothing that's not popular in your host country, but it might make you feel good to blend in a little bit more. That's kind of what I tend to hear from students, that they felt more comfortable if they were looking a little bit more like a local person. Leggings is another example of something you won't really see people wearing that athleisure in other countries. People tend to dress up a little bit more. Not to say they're walking around in suits and gowns all the time, but that is definitely part of the culture that you'll probably notice, and you might, again, want to emulate. So packing light, bring a small backpack for day trips. And make sure it's a backpack that's pretty secure. It's not just one that you can reach into or has like a simple cinch. You want things that actually zip and buckle, that you can keep items secure in, with maybe a nice like interior pocket, for example. You want to bring some layers. You're probably going somewhere where there's more precipitation than there is here in Arizona, which is basically everywhere. So again, research the climate, be prepared for rain, be prepared for cloudy days, and but of course still be prepared for sunny days depending on where you're going, and protect yourself from the sunshine. Decide if you'll need a laptop. Many of you will likely bring your laptops anyways, but if you're going to study howler monkeys, it might not be something you need or want to have on site. So talk to your program providers. And make copies of important documents. So passports, debit card, credit card. You want to carry a copy of your passport, for example, with you around on your person, but leave the actual passport in a safe place in your room. You also want to leave a copy of those important documents with someone here in the US as well. And consider bringing a battery pack, some sunglasses, Ziploc bags, as well as an adapter and a converter.
We'll get to that in a second. So I actually thought that was the next slide. Actually, I thought you were jumping onto my slide, Trish. Medical packing advice, we talked about this a little bit earlier. If you're planning to bring prescription medications with you, check to make sure that they are legal and allowed in the host country. With prescriptions, especially in terms of legality, you can go to the CDC website for your host country, and there will be information about types of prescriptions that are illegal in your host country. If you're going to Europe, it's very likely that everything you're bringing is going to be legal. Other countries may depend. Pack all prescription medication in their original bottles with your name on the bottle, and make sure you have enough for the whole trip plus a little bit of extra, just in case you lose some or anything like that. And the thing with making sure they're in their original bottles with your name on it is loose pills just flying around can look a little bit on the sketchy side. So you want to make sure you have, if you are asked, that you can prove, no, these are my medications that I was legally prescribed. This is the same if you're bringing non-prescription medication. For example, one of my programs in Ireland, it can be really tough to access over-the-counter pain medication, like ibuprofen, for example, is surprisingly tough to get in Ireland. So if you're a type of person who gets headaches a lot or something like that, plan on bringing some ibuprofen with you and keep it in the original bottle. Bring a paper copy of each prescription just in case you do lose your pills and that you need to get them refilled, or I shouldn't just say pills, I'm sorry, whatever medication you may have. Bring any extra glasses or contacts that you feel you may want just for backups. I'm one of those people that when I travel, I don't even wear contacts that often. Trisha can vouch for this. You've probably seen me wear them all of 5 times. When I travel, I have an extra pair of glasses and I have like 5 pairs of contacts, even though I never wear contacts. I'm very much an overpacker in that sense, but it's good to have extras because the last thing that you want is to not be able to see, especially all the cool stuff you're going to be doing. You want to see all that fun stuff. If you have any types of special medical materials, for example, if you have any types of nebulizers, if you have syringes for an insulin kit, if you have anything that needs to be, an injectable, make sure that you not only, as it says above, keep everything in the original bottle and have enough for the whole trip plus 1 week. But if it's anything other than just a basic pill or liquid, then I would encourage you to have a doctor's note articulating specifically what it is that you need this for, and what it all does. As an example, I have a student who's abroad right now who has a seizure disorder, and so she has a couple of different tools that she brought with her to help her monitor I don't understand a lot of it, to be honest, but to help her monitor some stuff to help recover from a seizure and to help her predict when it's going to happen. And she had to have a special doctor's note for that stuff explaining what it was in case she was asked. So if you have any types of specialized medical stuff, just make sure that you have not only everything that you need to, make it do what it needs to do for you health-wise, but also make sure that it is packaged appropriately. This is my converter slide that I thought Trisha was stealing.
You can take it away, Amanda.
So there's a difference between a converter and an adapter. So a converter is something that you plug into an outlet to help regulate the voltage that comes out. And an adapter is something that allows you to plug a US plug-y outlet thingy into a foreign outlet. So as an example, I should have pulled this out before we started actually. But this is what it looks. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. This is what the adapter in Europe looks like. Where's my camera? Here we go. It's 2 little round. So, I don't have a plug on me, do I? I was gonna try to show you with a US plug. So what happens is you've got this end and you plug your US plug into that, and then you plug all of that into the outlet of wherever it is you're going to be. So the adapter is just to make sure it can actually be plugged in. The converter is to make sure that the electricity will work in the way that you need it to. So make sure you have both. One thing that I do have is I have 2 actually that I got from Target for $12.99. And these are worldwide adapters. So these will work for any country in the world. I got these in the aisle at Target that sells the suitcases and all of that. Not necessarily a plug for Target. They are not a sponsor. I just really like Target. So do make sure you are getting your adapters and your converters, because you will very much need those. And for the adapters, have at least 2, so you can plug in your cell phone and your laptop at the same time. Check to see if you'll need a laptop. You will probably need a laptop for most programs. Make sure you have a camera. You're going to want to take some pictures. Nowadays, your cell phone camera is of a high enough quality. I mean, it's better than most cameras that I grew up with, to be honest. The pocket that I have in my pocket right now, the camera that I have in my pocket is better than the $700 camera that my dad had when I was 6. Like, it's just amazing what technology has done. Check with your cell phone provider to see if you have any types of international plans for using your phone data. If you do not have a plan like that with your provider, or if it's just too expensive and you don't want to do it, then you will be relying on your Wi-Fi to communicate. Y'all are probably much better at this type of stuff than even Trisha and I are. You guys probably know way more about the technology. But just check to see. I work with T-Mobile, but I was with Sprint before they got absorbed by T-Mobile. So I still have my original Sprint plan, which is that it's only in certain countries, but in certain countries, I have 100% free coverage. I know, for example, that Verizon will charge you $10 a day to use your phone abroad, regardless of how much you're using it. So just check with your provider. And then this is a big one. Hair dryers, curlers, hair straighteners, electric shavers, anything along those lines, do not bring on a short-term trip abroad. If you absolutely have to have it, buy it in country. Go to the local place, spend €15 and get yourself a new blow dryer. The reason for this is these devices, even with an electricity converter, they often use way, way, way more electricity than the outlets abroad are capable of putting out. I've been doing this for 6 years, and I've had at least 3 students not listen to me, take their hair dryer, plug it in abroad, and they blew out the outlet. And you will be charged for any damage that goes along to your accommodation that may be your fault. So you don't want to be responsible for paying to have the entire building rewired. So if you absolutely cannot live without your blow dryer, without your hair straightener, without your electric shaver, buy it when you are there. It is not worth the risk. Again, even with converters, we see stuff blow out all the time. So we do not recommend it.
Money. Okay, so we encourage you to have at least the equivalent of $300 upon entry in your host country currency, which you can change at a bank. You want to maybe shop around for the best rate, because they will charge you a rate to convert. Designate someone here in the US to be responsible for your financial affairs. And again, give them those copies of your important documents, your passport, your credit card, etc. And you'll also want to talk to your loved ones, if you don't have a credit card already, about opening one. I always encourage students to have a credit card, even if you never used it, but had it available to you in the event of an emergency. That is a valuable resource. You want to tell your bank that you are traveling, and research any foreign transaction and ATM fees that might be associated with your credit or debit card. There might be some fees that they don't look very big, but right, if every single time you're swiping your card, you're getting that fee, it could really add up. So something to be aware of, and also again to alert your bank of, because if they see that your card was swiped in Costa Rica, they might think that there's something fraudulent going on there. Talked about this, but bringing a secure bag and purse, one that zips and buckles ideally, and storing your wallet in this bag in a location where it wouldn't be easy for someone to reach in and grab out of your bag. It is something to be mindful of, especially in more touristic, larger cities, that pickpocketing does happen. But so long as you're vigilant and ideally carrying items on the front of your person, you should be able to avoid that. So I've always had like a crossbody bag where I keep my hand on the bag if I'm in a populated place. Don't carry a lot of cash on your person, and don't handle money in public, right? You don't want to draw attention to the valuables that would be in your bag if you're traveling around out in the open. And I don't want anyone to be scared about pickpocketing. But it is something to be familiar with the culture around this in your host country, and being the Western Europe advisor, it's something that does happen in larger cities. There's kind of this perception of no harm, no crime. So if someone was to take something from your bag and you were to approach them and ask for it back, they would likely just give it back to you. Violent crime rates are really low in Europe, for example, but pickpocketing does happen. And so it's something just to be vigilant and be prepared to have a secure bag and carry it in a way that mitigates that risk. You want to get your currency changed at a local bank because that's less expensive than doing so in the airport, for example, or there are special currency exchanges, which they'll charge you more there. I mean, if you're in a bind, you might want to access some cash at one of those places, but better to do so at the bank. So plan ahead for that. Make those copies of those documents and keep the actual document in your room, like your passport, for example. You don't need to be carrying your passport around when you're out and about, in the evenings, for example. And bring proof of vaccine. Research how to digitize it for your country as well, such as that green pass for Italy.
And we are done. So went a little bit longer than we expected it to, partially because Tricia and I like to talk, and partially because we started late. So again, thank you for bearing with us as we work through our technology issues. You would think after 2 years of COVID, we would be better at it by now, but here we are. Do make sure you follow us on social media. We are at EdAbroad on Instagram and Facebook, and at NAU_abroad on TikTok. We are most active on our TikTok and our Instagram, so please do follow us. If you're interested in doing a social media takeover while you are abroad, I did actually have a couple students specifically ask about that and say, I see this on the Instagram all the time. I want to do this while I'm abroad. Then actually Tricia is going to be the person to contact there. So make sure you follow us on social media. That's about it. So for you are now done with your pre-departure. We will go ahead and send out the video tomorrow. I think right now it's about dinner time, but we'll go ahead and send out the video tomorrow to everybody. Your next steps are to coordinate your travel logistics and get started on packing your bags and getting ready. A question we do get a lot is, do I need a visa? It depends on the country that you're attending, and it depends on how long you're going to be there for. So you can go to travel.state.gov for that information, or you can, of course, talk to your education abroad advisor about potentially getting a visa.
They probably would have told you already if you needed one.
They probably would have. Yeah.
And if anyone has any burning questions yet, Cora, you can speak through the mic. I actually have a burning question because someone here is their name in Zoom is Valerie, but I don't actually know who you are for attendance purposes. So I'm hoping that I tried to direct message you, but I'm hoping you can chime in and share your full name. So
yeah.
But Cora, did you have a question?
I just wanted to all that I need to go talk to Arturo or something like that about, like the Latin America.
If you've been working with Angel, then you can reach out to Angel. There's just been a transition recently because Arturo is now advising for Latin America, but he joined our team just about a month ago. So you can certainly reach out to Angel and she can help clear up the credit discussion.
Because it's pretty much, I just need to do the CIE one, the divert from program form.
Okay. Yeah.
And that we just asked for in advance. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Amanda.
I was going to say that's just going to be stuff you're going to work with your education abroad advisor on. So either Angelina or Arturo.
And then Angelina sent me the policy brochure, but I don't know if I was enrolled for the international health.
If you receive the policy brochure, then you've been enrolled.
Okay.
Yeah, it typically comes directly from CISI, but for group enrollment, it might be a little bit different.
It's a little bit different, yeah.
Because it's through Wildland Studies, which is not directly through the school.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well then you're going to want to check with Wildland Studies to see if they're providing your health insurance or if we need to provide your health insurance.
They said we are. Like
okay, well then in that case, then yes, that enrollment that you received is accurate.
Okay. Because I just posted it, like I have all the paperwork and payment done for Wildland Studies. It was just like,
yeah, you'll see that insurance bills as a separate item in your Louis account, so you'll actually see that.
Okay.
Great question.
Annalee, you had a question?
Yeah, so two things. I'm 90% sure that Valerie is my mom.
Okay.
I
Okay, so
noticed
let
they
us
left
know.
it right after I asked that.
Yeah, so I invited her so we could get double the, I guess.
Excellent. I was gonna say,
That's fine. Yeah, we have parents join us all the time. That's totally fine.
Okay, and then the second question is, I was looking at the charges in the Louis account. So I've already paid my tuition through USAC, and I still have about a $5,000 tuition charge with Louis. I was told that that would get reversed. Do you
It will.
know?
We're working on that this week.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I've gotten a couple of questions about that. It's going a little bit slower than it typically does due to some issues on our end. But we are working to get that information over to financial aid this week so that they know to go ahead and get those charges waived.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Other questions? If you don't have any questions, feel free to leave and have a fantastic rest of your night. But if you have any questions, Trish and I are happy to stick around and answer anything for you.
If I already paid tuition with Wildland Studies, would that be waived too on the Louis?
yeah, so you may have seen tuition post through NAU, but don't pay it because it will be reversed sometime this week.
Or maybe early next week.
Mhm.
Like it would be under the summer one or whatever tuition?
Yeah, the summer tuition, your NAU summer tuition will be
Mhm.
waived because you're paying tuition to Wildlands, not to us. So
Yeah.
sometimes either this week or next week, we'll get those charges removed.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, have a great
good night,
time,
Cora.
Cora.
All right. Goodness gracious.